Dude, this game is bad. Bad Dudes was developed by Data East and released for the NES in 1989. As usual with these beat-em-ups, it's an arcade port. The arcade game is pretty good, but the NES port suffers greatly. It is truly a bad game.
Got it.
Just the year before, in 1988, Technos Japan released a little game called Double Dragon. Well, this game, obviously, this is a great game and really affected the beat-em-up genre. And so we had all these games coming out, trying to be like Double Dragon. River City Ransom was a good game, but Bad Dudes, not so much. Alright, Double Dragon 2 was released in 1989, same year as Bad Dudes, and that one's highly regarded. In fact, it's considered the best in the series for Double Dragon, but Bad Dudes, on the other hand, is not so highly regarded today. The game opens up with a message from, some dude with shades. Look at what he says. He says, "The president has been kidnapped by ninjas." Okay. Are you a bad enough dude to rescue the president? That's the plot! It's sort of ridiculous because, 1, ninjas don't kidnap, they kill. And 2, why do they want the US president anyways? This is never explained, but beat-em-ups usually don't have important plots. The standard beat-em-up plot usually has to do with kidnapping. For instance, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Final Fight, Double Dragon. Yeah, I rest my case. So these two bad dudes, do they work for the government or did they volunteer? These two guys take to the streets in order to rescue the president. I know this is an NES game, but compared to Double Dragon, the graphics are terrible and the gameplay is choppy. For one thing, the characters are very stiff when they move. It looks like they're constipated. The characters can punch and kick, no throwing, no body slamming, nothing like that. However, you can pick up one of two weapons, nunchucks, or a knife, and use them to attack the baddies. The bad guys can appear on the screen very quickly and run into your bad dude before you can turn around. This can be frustrating. Now, if you compare this terrible NES port to the arcade game looks and plays pretty good. And then you look at the NES version, oh, not so good. Yeah, this was a lazy port. The bosses are simple, and sometimes even lazy imitations of the bad guys. The boss of the third level here is a typical ninja sprite who can transform into multiple ninjas. It seems the programmers ran out of good ideas for bosses. In the arcade game, when you finish a level, your character puts his arms in the air and says, "I'm bad." However, this doesn't sound so good on the NES. Instead of sounding like any kind of phrase, it just sounds like the guy is barfing. "I'm bad." Seriously, when you hear it, you think, what was that? Maybe that was cool in the 80s? The game becomes very repetitive. It's just not fun. The arcade version is far superior, as is often the case. This is a lazy port. If you're gonna play a beat-em-up game, don't play this one. In my opinion, the peak of the beat-em-up genre was with TMNT 4 and Streets of Rage 2, which would not come for a few years. Bad Dudes is just a mediocre beat-em-up game. Final verdict. I'm going to give Bad Dudes 2 stars out of 5. Not worth it. Bad Dudes is, well, a bad game. The scenery is ugly, the characters are rigid, the gameplay is cheap, and it's just not fun in the end. Really, is the president worth it? It's got one thing right, though. The name is very fitting.